dressing price. All my rings got weight to it. You feel that? You feel that? Hey, you heard that? Classic.
Let's switch to why homes were sold in 2025. The very first reason that's listed in this report is that 23% of all the people who sold wanted to move closer to friends and family. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you think most listing agents recognize?
I think so, especially after, the last 5 years, the whole COVID thing. And I hate saying that because I feel like it's so overused, but it's true. I think going through that and going through the chaos of maybe not being able to be around your family or your friends, the people you want to be around, like we were forced to not be able to. So I think a lot of people are like, hey, you know what, life's too short. I do want to be by these people. I want to see them more. So I think that number does make sense.
Do you feel like that's different than pre-COVID? Do you feel like that was a different conversation?
I do. I really do, because I think people just took it for granted that you could just do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted. You could go see people. I mean, we weren't allowed to fly. We weren't allowed to be in, I couldn't go watch my kid's soccer game, and that was outside. You were only allowed to have one parent there. So I really do. I think it was just a matter of feeling that lack of control. And I mean, the one thing you can control is where you live.
10 to 12% of all homes that were sold was because it was either too small or because it was too large. Mm-hmm. Yet I feel like a lot of agents talk about that with their clients. Why is that such an important part when it's only 10 to 12% of what people are selling their house for?
It's a matter of knowing what your client wants. And it's a matter of figuring that out together, and by asking more questions about what they want, why they want it, and their timeline, if that makes sense.
It feels like in the past there was also a large percentage of people who talked about jobs. You talk about relocation, mm-hmm. moving because of my job or being mm-hmm. closer to work or other things. Is that outdated now as well?
There's still a lot of people that are working from home full time, but then now we're actually, so again, during 2020, a lot of people were like, hey, I want to move because now my job's 100% online and we're told it's always going to be. Mm-hmm. So I've actually had some clients that move away like an hour thinking like they're always going to be full-time from home. Guess what?
Called back in.
Mm-hmm. 4 days a week. So now they have to come back. So I think it just really depends. But I think it goes both ways. Some people do want the convenience of being closer to work if they're called in.
Do you think in 2026 that changes? Or do you think we're going to stay?
I think we'll stay. Honestly, this year I saw a lot more reloads out of town.
Okay.
I see a lot more big relocations from across the nation or down south. But I also had several come in. Again, I had primarily listings this year, but a lot of them were relos, which also makes a huge impact.
Or for those who have to move, that it's somewhat irrelevant. The rate is what the rate is.
It is, yeah.
But for others, if the rate drops, and people talk about the rate dropping in 2026, if the rate drops to a reasonable level in the 5s and the 4s, let's say, would that open up the market and people feel free to move around again?
Totally.
So it does have an impact.
I feel like it's a psychological thing if it's in the 5s, like, oh yeah, it's like the gates opened.
Well, people who are at 3% or lower.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden feel, all right, I can accept something in the 5s.
Well, and stats show that the average person moves every 7 years. For me, I market to people that have lived in their house over 7 years and have more than 20% equity in their house, because I know those people are itching to move. So I definitely think that who I market to will be more likely to make a move if those interest rates drop a little bit.
Well, we also know the stat is that it was 80% of all the people who have a mortgage currently have an interest rate at 6% or below.
Which 6 is pretty normal.
But for a lot of people, it would have to make sense financially for them to move.
Yeah.
So it would have to drop considerably in order to free that up a little bit.
Well, and one thing too as a listing agent is you can market. So if your seller is flexible and says, hey, yes, I'm willing to give like X amount in concessions, then you can market as a listing agent. The seller's willing to buy down your rate for you, which will be very helpful.
So you brought up the idea of people moving every 5 to 7 years, and we were so familiar with that and prior to COVID. Since COVID, we feel like the numbers have changed a little bit. Now, in this report, it does talk about 5 to 7 years, but 61% of all people now have been in their home for 8 years or longer.
Give me the list of names and I will market to them.
Do you feel like that's an impact, though, of COVID in the last 5 years, or do you feel like, and even rates going up?
No, I can see that because during COVID, people weren't working, and guess what they did? They remodeled their house. They made their house what they wanted it to be. And because they were bored and they wanted to love where they live. So I think a lot more people like love where they live right now. And as long as it still makes sense for them to be in that house and they love it, they're gonna stay.
So I think so many people are stuck and just fixated on that interest rate. They're not thinking about the long term of, all right, I might have $150,000 in equity I can throw down. And yes, my
Yeah,
interest
they buy the
rates-
rate down.
They can buy the rate down, or they have such a nice big chunk to put down. The impact of the interest rate isn't as effective.
Right.
It goes back to what we've talked about a lot, is the education. Doesn't make sense. It might not, but you want to make sure you're finding out. And we go off a little bit tangent here, but a lot of people, the younger generation, they go to AI. We've had this conversation.
I go to AI.
Right, but you go to AI as an experienced real estate agent, and sometimes if you're asking real estate questions, you're going to get answers you're going to understand. And I think, the education piece, why I keep preaching about it, but it's going in the right place, because a lot of these people I deal with go to AI, they get their answer, but do they know what the answer means? And that's where I just think it's going beyond to make sure, because I think the average homeowner, as someone who's been doing this for almost 30 years, the average homeowner is way more educated than they ever were before. But they still don't talk about it enough, as you've already hit on. And I just think it's still important for you to get out there. Yes, get those answers, but you need to talk to somebody. AI is great, but there's the human touch on certain things. You still got to get it.
One thing with AI, it's amazing. But like I looked up my neck hurting and it's like, oh, you need neck surgery. Like, so it's like, it does, it's extreme.
Right, you go down a rabbit hole real quick.
Yeah, real quick. And then like 2 hours later, you realize you should have gone to bed and now you have cancer. So.
Yeah, 76% of all the homes sold in 2025 were sold without an incentive. 8% were actually sold with a home warranty. Does that surprise you?
So as a listing agent, yes, offering a home warranty, it gives a buyer a peace of mind. It's more of like a coupon. Like home warranties don't just cover everything. Also, it depends on the home warranty that's chosen. So I would say shop around for it. There's lots of great carriers nationwide. But it just offers a peace of mind, especially if some things popped up on the inspection and it's not necessarily a true health and safety hazard. And it's not something you want to negotiate because you're gonna lose the deal. A home warranty can just help give you some comfort knowing like, okay, if the furnace goes out next year, then I'm gonna save some money having to have it replaced.
Let me ask you this. So to get a home warranty, do you have to have an inspection done?
No.
So do you think, because I felt 8% was a big jump from what I expected it to see.
No.
But do you feel like some listing agents may be offering that home warranty up because they are waiving inspections to give them that little warm fuzzy?
Usually you don't. So there's a couple ways to think about it. For me, if we already know there's some things that are gonna pop up, then I just wait. I wait to offer the home warranty. I wait until the inspection happens, and then that's kind of like our negotiating factor. Like, hey, Mr. Seller, I think we should offer a home warranty. They're asking for this, and this, but things aren't really broken. Kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So let's offer this instead, and usually we can find a middle ground there. I save it in my back pocket.
What does a home warranty cover?
Depends on the policy, honestly, and the program you choose. So there's like normal, basic, like there's low, medium, and high. Like you can get some home warranties that actually cover your pools if you have a pool. So I educate if I have a buyer, I educate my buyers, like, let's shop home warranties, because this house is 80 years old and you're gonna have some things that pop up, or this house has a pool, or hey, your house already, the roof was just replaced. Usually they don't cover roofs though. But like the furnace is a little wonky, but you can get it to cover hot tubs, parts of repairs for anything. Usually you just have to pay a service fee, like $50, $100 for the technician to come out. And then it just really depends. They say actually you should look at what DTE offers, which is like $20 a month. And that is, evidently that's really great coverage. So I would almost say like maybe people look at that instead.
How much is a typical home warranty?
Anywhere from $400 to $800.
Okay.
You can buy a 1 year, you can buy a 2 year. It also depends on if you want a $50 deductible or $100 service fee, I guess, per item. Also, there's different ranges that cover different things. Like you can get extra coverage for like septic, or like I said, the hot tub and the pool. So that's obviously going to cost more, but I would say no more than $800.
9% of the homes that sold were sold with the incentive of closing costs or prepaids. Is that surprising?
No, we had a turn in the market. I feel like, again, part of it is agents still had the mindset of, and they promised their sellers maybe that houses were going to sell a lot faster than they did. And so when you have an anxious seller and the house has been sitting for 45 days, then now they're going to get more flexible and offer incentives. I try to prepare my sellers. I have 2 listings right now that are 11 and 12 days on market. And I just had the conversations yesterday, like, this is where we're at. This is how many showings we have. And one is like, well, what's next? I feel like it's been on the market like a while. I'm like, remember when we had our conversation, and likely like this time of year, it's going to be longer. But not only that, like our area, it's on the market for about 28 days. So now we have to add it. So we're not even a third of the way there. So it's a matter of, as the listing agent, just reassuring your sellers where they're at. And if you're not doing, if you get to a point where it's sitting and the sellers are getting anxious, they're probably going to offer some of those incentives.
As a listing agent, would you recommend a price reduction, a seller concession, or a home warranty?
Not a home warranty, it's not enough. As the listing agent, I would just have the conversation with the seller, present all the information. If it's been stagnant and we haven't had showings in like 2 or 3 weeks, it might be time to look at a price drop. It just really depends. If we already priced it on the higher end of where we should have priced it, then yeah, well, but I've already had that conversation. Like usually I already have the conversation with my seller. Hey, we're listed at $799. If we don't get an offer within 30 days, I'll be having a conversation with you to drop that price. So I've already prepared them for that, which I think is important for listing agents to do. We have a lot of listing agents that don't have those conversations with their sellers. They're scared to call them. I give my sellers 2 weekly updates if their house is still on the market. Mondays, it's a recap from the weekend. And then Thursday or Friday going into the weekend. Like, this is where we're at from the weekend. This is what the feedback is. And then going into the weekend. So I think we have a lot of listing agents that just don't have those conversations with sellers. So sellers get anxious. They
not only that, you got listing agents who aren't doing the research you're doing, or they just heard, oh, she's listing here. You want this number? Okay, I'll just throw it out there.
Which doesn't help anybody.
Cluster.
Sorry, this is like not even on subject, but I have met with people who want to sell their house, and their number's crazy. And it's just I give them all of the information. I show them the comparables. I show them what's currently on the market. I show them this is likely where we should be. And they're like, no, I want to list it for $75,000 more. Well, that's not going to help any of us. Oh, well, so-and-so will do that. I'm like, okay, you let them put the sign in the yard. It doesn't make sense for us to work together, because if we can't agree on a price, it's going to be really tough later down the road when I have to have the conversation with you to lower that price. And again, it's just it's not helpful to either of us.
Why do you prep them for a price reduction rather than a seller concession?
Because the price reduction shows up. I mean, we love to hate Zillow, but that's where everyone's shopping. So when you make a price reduction, it shows up on the algorithm. It shows up in their searches, they get an alert. If you change and just offer concessions, that does not show up at all in any marketing. The seller literally, or the buyer literally has to like search for it or just happen to wander across it. It doesn't get pushed to them.
So it's a marketing issue
Yes.
versus...
Yeah.
For a buyer, do you feel it's better to have a price reduction or a seller concession?
I think it's better to have a price reduction because concessions are always there. So concessions are always negotiable as long as both parties are willing to negotiate it. Another thing as a listing agent is, and I heard this on a podcast, I can't remember where, but with listings sitting right now, if you know you have a couple of buyers that are on the fence or still circling, as a listing agent, have your seller write up the offer to the buyer. Like, hey, these are the terms I'll accept, and go that way. Like, so it's another way of like, hey, this is like Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller is willing to accept $750 on this house at $775, and they will give you this, or they'll give you concessions, or maybe not. But like, how about as a seller, you offer, knowing that your listing has been sitting and you've got some sharks circling.
You ever question when that offer comes in, and it has to say you've been using the number 15, you see a $15,000 concession. Do you question what the lender's doing with that?
I always call the lender, one, to make sure that they can legitimately get that 15.
Right.
Because we just had one.
Some of the rules you
Yeah,
can't.
no, I just had a listing where the buyer's agent is brand new, and I knew right away it's a certain program, and I knew they were not going to get that much. Guess what? My seller got reimbursed at closing.
Yeah.
Because the money couldn't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my seller got a check for $3,900.
Yeah. Well, it just goes, and again, this is just full circle with the education piece. Is sometimes I see offers that are thrown out there, and if I were a listing agent, which I am not, obviously, but if I saw $15,000 in concessions, I would be asking the question, what is this for? I mean, obviously, based on price point, it might be different things, but again, I've seen it where, and I had no involvement in the situation, but buyer went in and asked for a flat 6% commission because that's what was allowed by the program, and it was a $400,000 house. So quick math, I'm like, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
So the listing agent called me because they knew me, and they're like, well, what are they gonna do with all that? I'm like, well, I can't answer that question what they're doing with it, but that is the max allowed for the program. But that's a lot of stuff to buy it on points or doing whatever. Sounds very similar to your story. We got to closing, and the seller made out $3,500 on the good because they couldn't use that. So I was just curious how you look at that as a listing agent, because sometimes I've got that call like, are they allowed to get that amount, or do they need that amount because they're trying to work that number down?
No, and again, it's just a matter of having that communication with everybody.